adopted 2 trees. I think this one, we had it the last time we talked to you, seemed great. Yeah. Oh.
Pretty good?
Yep.
Almost.
Good evening. This is the Village Council Public Workshop. The date is February 25th, 2026. The time is 7:30. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled the same as provided by law of the schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilmember Mortimer.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Perrin has not yet arrived. Councilmember Whites.
Here.
Councilmember Winograd.
Here.
And Mayor Vagenos.
Here, will you all please join us in a salute to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will go right to public comments.
Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. When there's 1 minute, the bell will ring, and when time is up, I'll say time is up.
Oh, I don't think the mic is on yet.
Is it on now?
It is now.
Ann Loving, Ridgewood resident. A number of years ago, there was a reporter who frequented these meetings. That's when there was a different Paul sitting in the mayor's seat, and his name was John Koster. He was a published author, and in the preface of one of his books, there was a quote that I liked so much that I copied it and put it on my refrigerator. It reads as follows, quote, "For there is no more difficult obstacle to overcome than that of the closed mind," unquote. I just thought that was magnificent, and I have it on my refrigerator. And the reason I'm bringing it up tonight is because I believe that the 4 of you who are here tonight have closed minds regarding the artificial turf. We are literally besieged by articles week after week about the hazards of turf, about the hazards of PFAS. I sent one to you guys last week. I know other people send them. I have sent others. There is no shame in changing your mind when you get new information, and we have increasingly more information that there's no upside to artificial turf. And it is my sincere hope that you will open your closed minds and put a natural grass field at Shudler. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Denise Lima, Ridgewood resident. Thank you for letting me speak today. I have a lot of topics, so I'll just go through them pretty quickly. Snow removal, thanks Keith and the team and everybody for everything that you guys did for the removing of the snow, the roadways. I think you guys did an outstanding job. I think we're all spoiled with not having snow and not having to dig out as much. So I think we forget what it's like. My back is still hurting from shoveling, so I just wanted to say thank you. I think Ridgewood Ave and Maple, I was out very early, right after the snow. I think needed a little more TLC, but otherwise really good. Saw the announcement about Nancy, Recreation Pro of the Year. That was great. I sent a few emails about pushing more on the park side about with Nancy, fixing up Tweeney Park. Pam, I think you were going to maybe talk about that during your update. And the picnic benches that I've talked about for 3 years. Both of those because I'm worried about the budget concerns for both of those. The weekly newsletters have been well received. Thanks for sending those out. I think we had a little slip the last week or two about the crescent lighting for Ramadan, which was not in the newsletter, but the event happened, but nobody knew about it, even though it was talked about here. So I think it's just coordination and getting everything together. Hopefully, I didn't see on the agenda, but the budget, the municipal budget, when are we going to see the budget-friendly version ahead of the introduction, the process? So Keith, maybe it's part of your discussion today about, the process and when that's coming, because I don't see it still on the village site. I sent through a request to make a change to the recycling coach, to add a calendar and a link to make it less clicks for everybody, and that was done. So again, I want to say thank you to the team for doing that. Shedler, I don't know if there's an update on Shedler. The bid went out for 2.6, and Keith, you were going to talk to Bergen GIF to get the rest of the balance for that. So again, just looking for an update. Also, the NJDEP sent out an update on 2.2 with some resolutions and also 9 additional conditions, one being a new architectural landscape design. And do any of those 9 now need to be included in the budget? And are there updates to those new 9 items that we didn't factor into that? Keith, last meeting you said the planning board, for the discussion about the meeting about parking for downtown, couldn't happen here because the planning board was being,
Time is up.
yeah, done, okay. And anybody that's on hybrid, are we booking those online so we can see them for future use? That'd be great, thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Anybody else?
Cynthia O'Keefe, Ridgewood resident. I guess the bell is gone. So last week, Catherine Schmidt offered an idea. Negotiating to Yes was a book that she talked about. It's how to make the pie bigger. And, I think it definitely, I've read that book. It's actually a good book. And I think that, she brought this forward to kind of ask each one of you to embrace maybe the concept of, opening up discussions with residents. The last 2, large projects, obviously Shedler and the Affordable Housing Project, met with very contested results. So obviously the Shedler neighborhood is not happy, and it has expressed through not only written petitions signed with an ink pen, letters, hundreds and thousands of letters to an organization, and, you really didn't listen. You say you did, but, every time we had conversations with you, it was, well, we have to do this. And it wasn't a negotiation. And by the way, I think you mentioned last week, when Frank was running, or you asked him to run with you, you didn't know his position on Shedler. However, he did step up to the mic during public comments more than once to state his position. So I don't know. I believe you if you say you didn't know what it was. But in any event, I think that there can be more productive discussions with village residents on hot topic projects, such as affordable housing, because decisions are being made with people's largest investment. And, I had to have a little chuckle for a mayor that doesn't have any power. You seem to be getting all your projects to sail through. So, maybe more public engagement is what is needed. And then last but not least, I would ask a favor, and I'm calling it leading with compassion, because there was a bit of a discussion about an assault that happened in this room. And, you know, Evan, you made a comment that the police investigated, and you left it at that. And I would just say that if there were any one of your family members who was involved in something similar, you would not frame it that way. It was hurtful. I was in the room when it happened, and I don't think this community should ever stand for something like that. There was also a verbal assault at a Fields Committee meeting, and nobody said anything. So I don't think we can march forward like this. You know, when you took your oath to lead, you took an oath to be fair, just, and impartial. And maybe you need a daily reminder
Time is
of
up.
those virtues, because I haven't seen it happen in several instances of bullying. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else? Seeing no one else, and we have no one online, I will close public comment. Would anyone like to respond to any of the comments made?
Mayor, I have a few. First of all, Denise, thank you for the kind words for the men who were out plowing the last few days and cleaning up the village. I'm going to discuss Nancy in my report. I think, Pam, you're going to speak to Twinney Pond tonight. I know that you and Nancy had some dialogue about that. With regard to the benches, I do want to reiterate with the addition of the new pavilion at Habernickel, there are picnic benches at that location. There's also picnic benches at Graydon on the far side, closer to the stable, near the skate park and the playground that's there. But Nancy is working towards adding picnic benches in some of the parks, and I think that's going to be part of the Citizens Park improvements that we're making with the county grant we received. With regard to the crescent lighting, we really threw that together within 48 hours. I know the council had approved it about a week and a half before. I was in touch with Mr. Hamza at the end of that following week when it was to be held on that weekend. So we did actually talk to Mahmoud about next year coordinating with Carol, making sure that we have a flyer a few weeks ahead of time so we can include it in the e-blast. We can also put it up on our social media sites like we do with Hanukkah and with Downtown for the Holidays and the like. The budget is scheduled to be introduced on March 11th in accordance with the statute, and I did send you an email relative to that schedule. Once the council sees the presentation and the public sees the presentation on the 11th and they vote to introduce the budget, all of the budget documents will go up online, and the public will have a full month to review both the user-friendly budget for introduction, the regular budget for introduction, come back with any comments during that month-long period. There'll also be a public hearing before final adoption in April that the public will be able to ask any questions or make any inquiries that they may have. I know Carol made the adjustment with Recycling Coach with Sean Hamlin that you discussed. With regard to Shedler, the Bergen Joint Insurance Fund approved our request for the claim package on Thursday of last week. We just received the paperwork today from Bill Bailey, who's the attorney for the JIF. So Matt is currently reviewing that, as is Bob Bruni, and we should be moving to execute that in the next few weeks. I'm not really sure about the reference to the planning board. I can tell you that I did discuss the fact that we had a community parking forum, which was very productive. It was the same night as a planning board meeting, but there was no interface between those two meetings. We were conducting a comprehensive study with Walker Consultants on parking. We solicited a lot of good information from two meetings that day, one with the business owners and the merchants downtown, second meeting with the public in the evening. I think it was productive. We've since had a follow-up meeting with them, and we'll be doing some additional public outreach through a community survey to assess the opinions of people who were not present at those meetings but would like to submit their comments when it comes to parking at Ridgewood. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a couple things. So not to be redundant, but with Ramadan, I too felt there could have been more engagement, and I reached out to Mahmoud and offered to help, and he was very much into that. I think they felt very pleased, as the rest of us, that it came together very quickly, and they heard the feedback as well. So we are definitely going to have more of that, and we offered our services repeatedly, and I just want to give him a big shout out for making it happen and having such a lovely event. I was unable to attend, so when I heard about it, a lot of people were feeling badly that they couldn't be there. So amplifying it next year, because it's such a good thing, is definitely part of our priorities. I believe the question was asked of how much of the conditions, how much has been allotted for the house in this year's budget. It'll be formalized, but at this point, I think it's $100,000 that's listed to meet the criteria from SHPO. As everyone knows, the whole park development had a lot of criteria, and because the house has been such a spend, and that's actually the reason why the property is historic, we're going to begin to take those steps so that house that is very valuable for very many reasons can be opened up to the community. And we have $100,000 is the line item for that.
So the budget that's been introduced, the capital budget that's been introduced has a line item of $100,000. That's to start up furnishings, fixtures, all that type of thing, so that we can start to have activities and events at the house. We actually had a very productive meeting on Friday, Carol and I. We should be finalizing the operations plan, the financing plan, and the staffing plan for the house in the next 30 days, let's say, in accordance with the approval that was granted by the DEP last August. So just as we're moving forward on the soil remediation, concurrently, we're moving forward with the plans to get the house up and running for the 250th anniversary of the country.
Yeah, and we're also inventorying other houses. I think Carol's got quite a few field trips coming up, and we look at the online communication because 250 is going to be big. I'm just going to take a moment to say, notice the new flag. It's a flag for 250th. The Boy Scouts noticed that the other day. They're very fired up on it. With respect to several other things, I just want to say in terms of engagement, without sounding defensive, this council, since Evan and I took our seats, is very much interested in public engagement. We've introduced hybrid access. Several of my committees run hybrid access. We reintroduced council meetings. We have the council chats. Every September, we have a meeting at the stable where we invite all the residents. And with respect to key special projects, Shedler, and residents. I did personally, and I know several other council members, did meet with neighbors there. So we are doing those things. We take citizen engagement very seriously. For me, 4 of my committees meet and are public facing. I'm public facing here. We would take appointments. So I know people want more, but we are balancing families and life and jobs. But I do just want the public to know we are very much interested. We do go to small splinter groups within neighborhoods. We go to dissenters. We go to people who are promoting it. And I just want to assure people that's happening. And lastly, I want to assure the general public that this council and myself, we are listening and we are open-minded. So the more feedback we can get, the more we're willing to absorb and listen. But I assure you, I am listening to the community and my mind is open. That's it.
Anybody else? Good. Let's move on. With your indulgence, this council has been very busy and accomplishing many, many tasks over the past year. And we are very proud of the work that's been done. It's been done with the support and assistance and help of the community, of the staff. And I just want to take a few minutes, if you will indulge me, to go through what has gone on this past year. And quite frankly, 2025 was a really great year for what I always believe is the greatest town in America. And while that's my own personal opinion, let me begin by telling you what some others have said about our wonderful village. The Bergen Joint Insurance Fund bestowed upon us their Gold Safety Award in 2025. Niche Magazine said that Ridgewood is the second best New Jersey suburb. I really want to find out who that first town is, or at least who they think it is. We're going to talk about that. We were ranked the 11th safest town in the country by GoBankingRates.com. We were rated the best downtown by 201 Magazine, and we received the Bronze Award certification from Sustainable New Jersey, just to name a few. At the end of the day, let's face it, this is a pretty nice place to live, and we are all incredibly fortunate to be here. And let me say how fortunate I am, that I am as fortunate as anyone to be working with a council as smart and dedicated as the people sitting beside me. They have not seen a copy of my remarks, by the way. As I've said many times, the accomplishment of this village rests upon the foundation created by this council. Let's start with Pam. Yeah, you. She is my first call on every issue and the person I turn to when I can't figure out something on my own, which is happening on a more regular basis. Having her at every meeting I attend provides the guidance and steady hand that keeps this village going in the right direction. Thank you so much, Pam. And have you ever noticed how the guy to my right always cuts to the heart of every matter in seconds? Just as importantly, Evan is our financial guardian 365 days a year. He asks the hard questions. Sometimes people get a little uncomfortable, but I'm very comfortable with him asking all of those questions, and I am grateful that he is here keeping watch on our money at every meeting. Thanks, Ev. And quite honestly, I really don't know where we would be without Siobhan. She is, without question, the hardest working, most creative problem solving, most empathetic to every resident force of nature that has ever sat on this Ridgewood Village Council, and I work very hard to stay on her good side. And the new guy, who, by the way, hasn't been the new guy since 2 weeks after he took his seat on the council. Once we showed Frank which chair was his, he didn't need any direction from us. He hit the ground running, and every advance we've made as a town for parks and citizen safety has started with him. Frank, thank you so much for taking those under your wing. As I've said many times, we are 5 completely different people, and if you've ever seen us in the caucus room, you'd really know that. But we are all rowing in the same direction, helping to make our village a great place to live. I am so proud to be working with these people, not because they are on our team, because I get to be on theirs. But this council only gives direction to our incredible staff. It is their tireless efforts that turn our dreams for the village into reality. Every leaf, snowflake, of which we've had a few in the last couple of weeks, lawn clipping, scrap of garbage, empty soda can, drop of water, building permit, marriage license, is all taken care of by some of the best people I have ever had the opportunity to work with. These are the people who keep our village shiny and new and the envy of every person who comes to town to shop or dine. To all of you, I say thank you very much for your dedication and hard work. And now let's see what this council and staff has achieved in 2025. It's a pretty good list. First, let's talk money. We've maintained our AAA bond rating and had a budget increase of 3.14%, which was well below the rate of inflation. Next, we increased the village's ratables by over $200 million. And over the past 4 years, we have increased our budget surplus by over $900,000. And in 2025, we secured almost $2 million in grant funding for projects that included new lighting at Vets Field, PFAS remediation, the new bus station at Van Ness Square, improvements to Citizens Park, renovation of our skate park, and equipment upgrades for our police and fire departments. Thank you to each and every one of our department heads for finding money to improve our village that didn't come from our resident taxpayers' pockets. And it's at a time when federal, state, and local governments, as well as individuals all across the country, are struggling with impossible increases in health care costs. The Village also incurred significant health care costs, but we were able to limit those increases by almost $1.5 million in providing health insurance to our employees. Most importantly, we were able to do this while at the same time reducing the cost of health insurance to our employees, and at the same time maintaining the same level and quality of health insurance they have always received. Seems impossible, doesn't it? It was, but Mr. Impossible got it done. Thanks, Keith. Pulled a rabbit out of his hat on that one. So let's move on. Problem is, this council was pretty busy in 2025, so let's get started. It's kind of a lightning round. This past year, the Village entered into an agreement to acquire the Warner Theater, as many of you know, and along with the Ridgewood Arts Foundation, raised almost $250,000 from private donations to hire a team of architects, engineers, and other theater professionals to apply for a $75 million grant from the New Jersey Economic Development Authority to turn our beloved Warner Theater into a regional performing arts center. We anticipate filing for the grant very shortly. If we get the grant, we're off to the races. If we don't, the dream is likely over. Stay tuned and keep your fingers crossed. This is a big deal. Next, 17 years after acquiring the Shedler property, the Village of Ridgewood has obtained final approval from the DEP to build a park and a field on that site. Our first step will be to remove the contaminated soil from the property, which should take place this spring. We will then begin construction of the park and field in phases beginning sometime this summer. Special thanks to Siobhan, who shepherded this project like it was her personal project. Wouldn't have gotten through without you. And something that is very important to me personally is that Ridgewood can't just be a great place to raise your kids. It must also be a great place to live once your kids have grown. Last year, the Ridgewood Community Center Foundation obtained a grant of, again, almost $250,000 to turn the first floor of Village Hall into a premier senior center that will allow us to triple our programming to our senior community and provide a place for them to learn, grow, and live. Construction should begin in the spring, allowing us to be in full swing by the fall. I'm very, very excited about this. Next up, behind the leadership and vision of Deputy Mayor Pam Perrin, Ridgewood established a Special Improvement District, or a SID, in our Central Business District. The SID creates a fund, here's the key part, at no taxpayer expense from the residents, to help our Central Business District grow and thrive in this ever-expanding Amazon economy that has made it so difficult for Main Street shops to survive. Thanks, Pam. In November, the voters passed a referendum to increase the open space tax at an average cost of $37 per household per year. This will allow the Village to acquire, create, and develop more parkland to make Ridgewood even prettier and more vibrant than it already is. Frank, it's all you. And there's so much more. Let's see how quickly I can blow through some of the highlights. We replaced the bridge at Kingsbridge Lane that had been closed since 2021. We built the new pavilion and ADA-compliant playground at Habernickel Park. And with the support of the Board of Ed, the Ridgewood Baseball, Lacrosse, Soccer, and Football Associations all holding hands together, we installed new lighting at Vets Field that is both brighter on the field and darker on the homes surrounding it. Very cool project. Thank you, Nancy Bigos. We expanded the pickleball courts at Glen School from 4 to 6 because they are so popular. We built a new roundabout at Ridgewood High School at the end of Beverly Road for the Board of Education, their students, and their parents. I wish this was done when my kids were there, because now there's no more K-turns when heading down that block. And by the way, we have a partnership now going with the Board of Education. We help them when they need it. They help us when we need it. It's all one town. We have two boards, but we are now working together better than ever. Also at RHS, we approved a long overdue bus stop at Ridgewood High School for the benefit of students and their parents townwide. And the village planted over 200 trees last year. And behind the efforts of our communications director, Carol Bielkowski, oh, she's right there in front of me, we expanded our social media presence to almost 6,000 Facebook followers and over 3,000 Instagram followers, all in an effort to let our residents know what's going on here at Village Hall. Plus, over 3,000 people have downloaded the My Ridgewood app, which, just so you know, I can use it. So if I can use it, notice they're all laughing, you're not going to have any problems. So while we're at it, if you haven't done so, you should probably do it now. This council also brought the Ridgewood Police Department back to full strength for the first time in years. And thanks to the head of our recycling division, Sean Hamlin, we expanded our styrofoam densifier shared service agreements to 9 towns and recycled over 6 tons of styrofoam. Think about that, 6 tons of styrofoam. It weighs almost nothing, but we got 6 tons, which is good for the environment and good for our taxpayers. This council has also brought our trash and recycling fleets back up to full strength for the first time since 2018. And because Sean Hamlin views his work as a mission, the village collected and recycled over 100 tons of food scraps in 2025, saving our taxpayers money in disposal fees and giving the earth a little bit of a break. And with money clawed back from New Jersey Transit, Siobhan pushed to build a new bus station, a new bus stop at Van Nest to replace the one that had been closed for years. Siobhan, busy year. And we passed an e-bike ordinance for the safety of riders and pedestrians in Central Business District. Look for the rollout this spring. And then Rich Calby and Company have been as busy as anybody. They replaced almost 2 miles of aging underground water lines that were long overdue for replacement. And going on the water line, Ridgewood obtained the final approval of the 12th and final PFAS treatment facility, which should be all done in about a year from now. Thank you, Rich. And did you know that in 2025, our incredible firefighters responded to over 2,700 fire calls. They conducted almost 2,500 fire inspections, and they responded to 1,300 ambulance calls. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our firefighters for always being there when we need you. And our magnificent library that we are all so proud of had over 200,000 visits and almost 500,000 web visits in 2025. It is a true local gem that makes our village sparkle. And here's one I am also especially proud of. During the recent lapse in food benefits to struggling families who receive federal SNAP benefits, and when they were interrupted, the village organized a food drive encompassing our schools, houses of worship, the ever-present YMCA, and social services that bridged the gap until SNAP benefits could be reinstated. Nice going, everybody in Ridgewood who came to the table on this one. This list goes on and on and on. Believe me when I tell you, these are just the highlights. Doing this work is incredibly rewarding, but if you've ever watched even a few minutes of one of our council meetings, you know that this work isn't always easy. Which is why I want to thank you all for placing your trust in us. I can't begin to tell you how much that means to us. It's more than you can possibly know. Just as importantly, I want to thank you all for improving the tone of the conversation in this room and around town. When we discuss difficult issues, heartfelt, passionate discussion beats disrespectful confrontation every day of the week. And by the way, you get more done that way. Lastly, I want to thank my colleagues here, Pam, Evan, Siobhan, and Frank, for their hard work and relentless drive to make Ridgewood shine a little brighter every day. I can't tell you how honored I am to be sitting here with you. Stay well, my friends. And with that, let's move on. Keith, your manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. First, I do want to reiterate some of the comments that were made earlier in the meeting. I want to thank all of our blue-collar... Sorry, I was distracted. I want to thank all of our blue-collar workers for the incredible work that they did. This was the second major snowstorm of the year, and this storm, this past weekend, we clocked in 20.7 inches. Got the certification totals this afternoon. They worked for 20 straight hours, and they are back out there over the last few nights and in the nights coming to clear the piles from the Central Business District. We've also coordinated aggressively with code enforcement and with the police department to make sure that intersections are clear so that our students and pedestrians throughout the community can get to their destination, including school. And I just want to thank everyone involved, from our public safety folks to our blue-collar folks to code enforcement, central dispatch, everyone who was involved in the response to both of these storms. I'm very proud of Ridgewood's response. With regard to general announcements about the snow, we are asking folks, if you have not already done so, you probably have received a visit from code enforcement, but please make sure that you clean your sidewalks. We also expect property owners to clean the corners. We understand when piles build up 8-10 feet in the air, we may need to assist in that endeavor, but it does not take away the fact that the responsibility of the corners and access to the crosswalk at those corners is the responsibility of the individual property owner. Also, on behalf of the fire department, I want to respectfully ask everyone to clean the fire hydrants in and around their property. We have over 700 fire hydrants in the village of Ridgewood, so we're asking residents for their assistance, because to have just the squads go out and have to clear all 700 is a burdensome task, and God forbid there's an emergency as we're cleaning up from this snow. I want to extend my sincere congratulations and gratitude for the work that she does every day to our Parks and Recreation Director, Nancy Bigos. Nancy has been such a kind, generous, and helpful resource to me personally, but the work that she has done here in Ridgewood as our Recreation Director is simply second to none. Many other communities out there are very sports-focused. The beauty of Ridgewood is that while we are sports-focused and we have tremendous groups that do that work, we have a very broad range of recreation programs here in town. Whether it's programs for students at the community center, for our seniors at the community center, for our more nature-oriented programs and our committees like the Conservancy. Nancy really does paint our recreation experience here in Ridgewood with a broad brush. And that's why it was an honor to be at the dinner last night, where she was honored as the New Jersey Recreation Professional of the Year by the New Jersey Parks and Recreation Association. I was there with the mayor and the deputy mayor. Nancy, congratulations on behalf of all of your coworkers here at Village Hall. We are proud of this accomplishment. We are proud of you, and we are certainly proud of the work that the Parks and Recreation Department does on behalf of the residents of the Village of Ridgewood each and every day. We did get word from Senator Booker and Senator Kim that Ridgewood Water is in receipt of an appropriation from the federal government for $1.5 million to supplement our lead service line replacement. Rich Calby will be at our work session next week. He will talk a little bit more about what that means for Ridgewood Water. But he was over the moon when I called him to tell him that we were notified that we're going to receive those federal funds. And if my math serves me correctly, we're somewhere over $4 million in federal funds to supplement both PFAS and now the lead service line effort. I also want to thank my friend Mahmoud Hamza for his invitation to the iftar at the YMCA on Saturday to break the fast in celebration of Ramadan. It was an honor to be there with the entire community, but especially those who are celebrating. And next year, Denise, we will certainly get the word out earlier and share it with the community so everyone can come together in celebration of Ramadan. Just a few announcements. Rear yard garbage collection will continue to be suspended this week. We originally were going to set up a date of Monday to reinstitute rear yard collection. However, now they are calling for the potential of another significant storm on Monday and Tuesday. So we're going to hold off on a definitive date. So at this point, we're asking everyone to continue to put their trash curbside to make for a safer collection for our employees down at sanitation. The Department of Parks and Recreation will be holding their seasonal summer job fair on Monday, March 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 downstairs here at Village Hall in the Community Center. The summer job fair is for young adults ages 16 and older. They can explore a wide range of full-time and part-time employment opportunities available through our Parks and Recreation Department. Learn more about the requirements and the job descriptions for each positions. You'll also have the opportunity to speak with supervisors for each of the divisions who can answer any questions. Any further information that is sought, please give a call over to the Parks and Recreation Department at the stable. We're also inviting everyone to Super Science Saturday on March 7th from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Ridgewood High School. Come and explore the many activities and experiments and demonstrations that will be available that day. We will also be represented as a village by our police department, our fire department, and representatives from Green Ridgewood. Our recreation department also has a full lineup of programs to keep kids active and connected after school, including quite a few that kick off the first week of March. Please visit us and register through Community Pass, as these spaces will fill quickly. And lastly, our village council upcoming meetings. March 4th is a work session. March 11th is a public meeting. March 25th is a work session. March 30th is a work session. All begin at 7:30 p.m. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thanks, Keith. Let's go to council reports. Frank.
Thanks, Mayor. I first want to thank all the staff, too, for the snow removal. Just an amazing amount of work done. And when you drive around and see just how clear the roads and the sidewalks are, just fantastic job. And what really stood out to me is that when I was outside and I'd see them driving by, that they all had a really good attitude. And I think that just shows that be appreciative of not just the work they did, but the quality of people that we have working here. I also wanted to thank Carol for all the announcements that she sent out, keeping the residents informed about what was happening and how to get the trash out and everything else. So thank you, Carol. I also wanted to thank Nancy as well. I've had the privilege of serving on the Parks and Rec Board for many years and also working with Nancy before that on initiatives. And I think the biggest compliment to her is there's some new members on the Parks and Rec Board, and after the meeting in January, one of them said to me, wow, I had no idea that so much work goes into planning these activities. And to make it that smooth speaks volumes of her kind of leadership. So Nancy, well-deserved, congratulations. CSAC met last week, and so site triangle obstructions, we are now up to 134 in compliance. One new notice went out, and in this past month alone, 2 more of those 134 came into compliance. We have started doing an incident accident report, and so in January of comparing of this year to last year, there was a decrease, which is pretty significant because we had so much more snow this year, and to still be below last year just shows that things are hopefully trending in the right direction, which is down. We also discussed how the council approved a full stoplight that's going to go in at East Glen and Maple. We also have engineering spoke about that we had already put out a bid for traffic engineers, and those bids have been received, so we will be choosing one of them soon. And then so that new full light, this is a red, yellow, green, will be going in probably in the summer, which I'm sure Evan is very happy about. Last, that my Parks and Rec and Open Space met as a joint meeting, but that was at the same time as CSAC, so the mayor covered for me, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from him about how great that meeting went. And that's it, Mayor.
Thanks, Frank. Siobhan?
Sure. So I have a couple. Last week, Stigma Free met, and we had 2 celebrity guests. We had Mayor Paul make a visit, and it was nice to have him back. We also welcomed Megan Murphy, who is a local Facebook moderator of a group called the Sandwich Generation. Our joint meeting between Stigma Free and Access yielded that the caregiver at all levels and all ages often experiences their own sense of stress that's shared, whether it's within the Access community or within Stigma Free, the aging process. I want to thank everybody who attended. The police were there. The conversation was largely productive. We talked about amplifying the good work of the Board of Health, and we got into some curious discussions how sometimes stuff can be actually overwhelming for a caregiver, so much medical stuff. And our next step is going to be to meet with people like Sean Hamlin and talk about things like if your parents are moving and you have to get rid of stuff and all the sources. So I want to thank Megan Murphy for being there. I want to thank our health department, and again, Paul for being there. We've really done a lot of work in amplifying the good works out of the health department and within Stigma Free, the loneliness epidemic and all of that. So I want to thank everyone who's done that. I also want to let the public know that our schedule is going to be adjusting a bit because there's maternity leave coming from in the department. So check the calendar if you want to attend a stigma-free meeting. We're going to be rotating a bit because we want to have Dawn at the table. And thank you, Dawn, for stepping in. I also, we met with Access, and several things happened. Last week, obviously, Puzos was canceled due to the storm. We're going to be redoing Puzos at some point in the future. I want to say thank you to everybody who was planning on attend and let you know that we're going to re-register for Puzos sensory-friendly dinner, most likely in the month of March. We did have a long discussion about access representation at the 4th of July that I've discussed with Evan, and also Mayor Paul has stepped in to help with a couple ideas. Access feels very strongly that the statement that no one brush paints them, describes them. They had many ideas about how to be incorporated into the full day of 4th of July events and every event. And they were very warm on several ideas. They also want to be incorporated in the parade. Evan's going to follow up with some of this, but I want to thank Access for being so open-minded with the discussion, and Kara's going to be the committee chair on that. Additionally, I wanted to just thank the Boy Scout troops from 3rd and 4th and a couple 5th graders from Somerville who were here. I want to thank Heather who helped us. We had 16 Boy Scouts in the room. They all took over your seats and they had a great time, and they voted on lots of wonderful topics ranging from should video games be allowed in school, but my favorite question asked from the public was an affirmation where a 4th grader said, "Ridgewood's the greatest town in the world. Who agrees with me?" And I thought it was so funny because it's Paul's phrase, and they really enjoyed it, and again, loved our new flag. I, too, wanted to say thank you to everybody who worked in the storm. I also want to thank the merchants uptown who offered them coffee and kept our staff happy, well-fed, and safe, and it's just such a big effort, so I thank you with all the gratitude for making it look so seamless. And, of course, the biggest congratulations to Miss Nancy. I've known Nancy pretty much forever, and this is well done, well deserved. She's done so much in her time, whether it be the butterfly garden or completing the final phases of the Habernack Park development, hopefully this year adding a new park to her inventory, and it's just so well deserved. So congratulations to Nancy and everybody who made that happen. Well done.
Thanks, Siobhan. Ev?
Great, thanks so much. So first, I do want to join the chorus of folks thanking Keith, all of our folks who are out there battling the storm. Not all of us get to work from home, and those folks that are driving the snow plows are really, really, truly appreciated. Also want to add into the chorus of those congratulating Nancy Bigos on her award. Very, very well done. In terms of 4th of July, so we did have one of our, during this time of year, we generally have several meetings with police, fire, other folks that Keith chairs. We had one of those meetings last week, start discussing all the logistics that go into the 4th of July parade. As Siobhan has mentioned, we've also brought up the topic about access and providing folks who are neurodivergent some alternative ways of attending or otherwise being a part of the parade. We are working on that. It is a little complicated, but I'm pretty confident that with 4th of July and Access working together, we'll come up with a way to serve all of our citizens, and very pleased to be a part of that. Library Met, exciting news, we're getting new bathrooms. Work on that actually started today, so look for that. It will take a little bit of time, but really a nice upgrade that the library is in the midst of executing on. And finally, to me, probably the most important thing that I have to say tonight is really about the iftar and the crescent lighting. Both were just wonderful events. I was privileged and pleased to be a part of it. You know, up here on the dais, we tend to avoid national issues or world issues because that's not really what we do. But as I've communicated before and have said before in prior Muslim holidays, you know, I'm a very proud member of the Jewish community here in Ridgewood. I don't hide from it, I own it. With this face, it's kind of hard not to be known as a proud member of the Jewish community. But I have to say that every year I'm invited to these events, and I'm not just invited, I'm welcomed. Warmly welcomed by all of them in a way that is so giving and so wonderful and so fortunate to me to be able to, and really privileged to me to be a part of. And as I sat there watching the Imam speak, sat there at iftar eating the wonderful food surrounded by all of my neighbors, I was really struck by first how fortunate I am to live in the United States where we get to do this sort of thing, how fortunate I am to live in Ridgewood, an amazing community where we live in harmony despite whatever differences we might have, and how fortunate I am to call the wonderful Muslim community not just my neighbors, but my friends. Really privileged to have been a part of that. I want to thank the entire community for the invite and really thank them for the wonderful, warm feelings and inclusion.
Thanks, Ev. Nicely said. Pam?
Yes, the iftar dinner and the crescent lighting were just such warm, welcoming events. I felt privileged to be there. I also felt privileged to be in Atlantic City with Nancy Begos and most of her family members, watching her receive the award. Her comments were so sincere. She is so invested in nature and parks. And it's also important to recognize that the whole event was orchestrated and arranged by Katie Fry, who is our supervisor of recreation here in Ridgewood. She is also the president of the New Jersey Recreation and Parks Association, and she did a wonderful job. The other towns that presented and the other people who received awards were so inspiring. Not Chuck, I'm sorry. Paul and I were saying,
Work husband.
can we do that in our town? What about that kind of thing? What about, you know, we got so many good ideas.
Maybe too many.
Pardon?
Maybe too many.
As to Twinney Park, I did get to speak to Nancy about where we go from here. I stressed to her that I think the first thing is to find out whether the stormwater pipes are bringing water from the streets into the pond. It is a kettle pond, meaning it has no natural source of water other than rain. No river feeds it, no stream feeds it. The only water it gets is from rain and those two pipes. And one of them looks crushed. I can't even tell if the pipes are working. So I asked Nancy if she could determine whether the pipes are working. The second question is, what are the pipes bringing into the pond? That water should be tested and the lab results and analyzed to see what's being brought into the pond. We did have two quotes come in a while ago, a couple of years ago. One, they are different philosophical viewpoints of how to deal with Twinney. One is dredge it. The other is don't dredge it, you'll just make more room for invasives. And also recognize that a kettle pond is always looking to become a meadow. To bring it back to a pond where people can fish and skate may be unrealistic. But in the short term, Nancy is going to have the third-party contractor that the village is hiring to eradicate invasives also look at Twinney Pond. We have two kinds of invasives, at least there. In the water, you have stilt grass, which is very easy to remove. And then on land, you have Japanese knotweed. So let's see what we get in terms of a quote for remediating that situation. The Ridgewood Business Alliance, that is our special improvement district, received 13 applications for the position of executive director. And our 14 board members, 14 directors of the RBA, have been diligently interviewing these applicants, and now we're in the callback stage, and we hope to finish them up in the beginning of the month and have a new director. The planning board met last week on the 17th for a minor site plan approval at the corner of Union Street and South Maple Avenue for the addition of an attached greenhouse on the building there. Not a separate standing greenhouse, but a attached, sort of like a little sunroom. We also had training, a refresher course on the basic outlines and requirements for assessing and evaluating the applications that come before the planning board. The Central Business District Advisory Committee also met, and that was after the Walker Associates meetings. And so we have a lot to hash out there. And also, there was discussion about the new e-bikes law, and the police department and the Board of Ed working together to roll out their new educational program in the spring. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Pam.
Paul, could I just say two things with Pam? 'Cause she's,
Sure.
So two other things that we've been thinking about with Twinnies. One, I'll send the note again. When we were in Atlantic City, a kettle pond it was created because a glacier kind of took a rest. That's what it is. That's the bottom of it. And I did enter it into Rutgers, so I'm going to follow up with that. And the other idea that we have been seriously, people are going to think we're joking, is that with the invasives, I've been watching the park development, how they're bringing in goats. So I'm determined to say this so people understand that we're serious, is that, particularly with stormwater drainage, pipes, and hard to access places, goats love things like Japanese knotweed. They also love poison ivy. And there are companies that are emerging because people on steep inclines and with water get hurt. So we have been preliminary looking at the idea of goats to deal with invasives. It would require less manpower, it's more eco-friendly, and this is being done within New York City. Oddly enough, if you Google it, you can vote on your favorite goat that is servicing the area of the Bronx and New York Public. So those are two things that we have been working on. I keep telling my council I'm going to keep bringing it up. I can't wait to see Evan vote on line item budget goat. And so those are two things. But again, I'll follow back up with Rutgers, and I just want to make sure that the general community understands how rare it is, because apparently when glaciers were moving through a neighborhood, they took a little bit of a respite there, and that's what formed Twinnies, which is super cool.
Great.
I just want to have a village goat herder on staff.
Anybody want to apply for that now? No, we'll talk.
Has to be part-time, though, can't be full-time.
We'll talk in closed session. It's personnel. I said 2025 was a great year. I had a great week last week. I was very fortunate that Frank had a conflict and could not make the Open Space Parks Committee annual joint meeting. I love the work that these volunteers in our town do to make this a better town for everybody. And the focus of their meeting was the trails in town. And they had a presentation from a trail expert who comes in and says, yeah, you need a little bit of this, you need more of that, and they were drinking it all in, and there was a consensus that they want to get our residents to help maintain the trails that we all use. So it was really great. The only problem, by the way, with going last for council reports is they've already talked about all the things that I'm all excited about. But I'm gonna mention some things they talked about, but from a different perspective. First and foremost, Ramadan and the lighting of the crescent moon. I am so proud to be a part of this village, to be a resident of this village that is happy to have a Christmas tree to celebrate Christmas, a menorah to celebrate Hanukkah, and now a crescent moon to celebrate Ramadan. This was a wonderful event. It was our first time doing it, but it is now part of the calendar. And I will tell you something, I learned so much. I'm so happy about this. Bergen County has 70 towns. Of the 70 towns, 45 light the crescent moon for Ramadan. It is not quite so active in the rest of the state. But Bergen County is doing a great job on this, and Ridgewood is now a part of that, and I'm really happy about it. The event for Nancy last night in Atlantic City, so great. I know Nancy for 30 years. Our kids played ball together, and this was an honor that her colleagues bestowed upon her as Parks and Rec Professional of the Year. Talk about somebody who was no more deserving of it than her. It was really, really wonderful. And while most of the people at this conference are what I would call Parks and Rec nerds, they're proud of it. And as I'm watching, I'm going, I like these guys. They're amazing. So it was really a lot of fun and very enjoyable. The guys who are out there blowing snow and clearing streets for us, I heard from several mayors who were telling me that they had lots of problems getting people in and getting the work done, and they have streets that aren't clear. And they said, how'd you do? I said, we did great. And they said, well, what did you do? I said, I got out of the way and let them do their job, because they're really good at this and they're really dedicated and they want to get it done right. And we should all be grateful to them every single day. And by the way, they're going to be out every single night this week. When we're asleep, they're going to be out working. So, because there's more work to do. And lastly, I missed a note in my remarks about the state of the village that I want to bring out now. All of those financial gains about our AAA bond rating, about our budget increase of 3.14%, our putting almost $1 million into surplus over the last 4 years, they all have Evan's fingerprints on them. And and while everyone here contributed to that, he takes the lead in it, and I am grateful to have him with us. So thank you, Evan. Really appreciate it. And with that, let's get to our regular agenda. I believe we have a presentation coming up. So Carol, would you please join us?
So Mayor, as you know, we were fortunate enough to work with the County of Bergen to attain a grant to add hearing loops in 3 of the more prominent meeting rooms here at Village Hall. This room, the courtroom, was the first to be retrofitted with the technology. The second 2 rooms, which will be the senior lounge and the youth lounge, will be retrofitted during the community center renovations in partnership with Ridgecrest and the work that we're going to do with the Community Center Foundation. So Carol is here tonight to report out on the technology additions here in the courtroom. So, Carol?
Welcome, Carol.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. I nerded out on this back in May when I
I'm
presented.
sorry, could you speak up? I can't. No, just kidding.
I nerded out on this back in May when I presented this to you, and I'm really excited to let you all know that the hearing loop in the courtroom was installed and commissioned, which means that individuals with compatible hearing aids or cochlear implants can simply go on their phone, switch their device to the T-coil setting, and just connect automatically to the system and be able to hear what's going on. They'll be able to hear clear, intelligible sound regardless of any background noise or distance from the speaker. And I have props. In addition, we have 5 assisted listening devices, and these can be used by people with older, incompatible hearing aids that don't have T-coil, as well as individuals like me who have hearing loss but don't use a hearing aid. And this is especially important because, fun fact, an estimated 1 in 7 Americans have some degree of hearing loss, yet only about 20% of adults who could benefit from hearing aids actually seek treatment. So this technology has the potential to help many people. The IT team and myself, we've been trained on how to use these devices. It's just super simple. You plug this into here, turn it on, you put on your hearing device, and all the background noise just fades away, and you can hear what's being said perfectly. So I can say a lot more, but I will just end with saying that this technology really reflects a broader trend around the country as theaters, performing arts venues, libraries, houses of worship, and other public gathering spaces are installing hearing loops. And Ridgewood has long prioritized accessibility and inclusivity, and this initiative represents another big step in that direction. And I have a lot of other things to say, but in the interest of time, I won't. But if anybody has any questions about
Carol,
the technology,
just for the
let me know.
record, if it's me, if anyone wants to use this, what would be the procedure for them to get one of the headsets?
Well, I don't know if you noticed we have signage outside the courtroom now, and it says that it has the symbol, the hearing loop symbol, as well, saying that the T-coil is available. And say when the court is in session, Erica Miller knows, to ask. People can come up to her. The planning board, Jane Wondergem, we're going to train her on how to use it. So basically, anyone who comes into a public meeting in the courtroom can ask somebody who's in charge of the meeting, and they know where these devices are located. There's a sign-out sheet. There's a cool little charging deck where they're all charged. They'll be sanitized after they're used, so we eliminate that issue. And
So for here, then they should go to Heather, or like who would they ask to get it?
they could ask Heather. They could ask someone who is in the IT room. They're kept in the IT room for, security purposes, because we don't want people, walking out with one of these. And if you have a T-coil, you should know how to set it on your phone. I don't think anybody here could really help someone with that.
That's the app? Is it an app?
Yes, you would have an app on your phone, and you can just switch to the T-coil setting.
So I have a couple things to say. First of all, this is awesome. Congratulations. I don't know if the rest of the council or the community knows, but this is like the fastest grant application ever in the history of grants. I think I spoke with Carol on Thursday, and it was zip, 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 and on Monday or Tuesday, we were awarded the grant. So congratulations, and it's so fun working with you and seeing you get so much done. I would like to discuss, I think this is such a great thing. Maybe we could add a footnote to our printed agenda, just in case. I think it's a good amplification to the point. We could put it there. It's, it's only accessible if people know that we have it, and we do. I don't want it to dominate, but Heather, if we could put a static line on the bottom, that would help amplify it. And I think it's extremely important. I've said this before. Hearing loss is the invisible disability, because quite often people don't realize it's even happening to them. The statistics of 1 in 7 are real, and I'm very grateful. I'm very excited about this. I think it's going to be such an amenity for so many people who just don't really even complain about it. I would also like to say, for those watching at home, I still am very warm on closed caption. I know a lot of people love that as well, but this is the first step, and again, super proud, super grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Siobhan. If we could just do that, then this way, you know, if you miss the sign, it's right there.
And Siobhan, as part of the grant, we do need to do certain things. One of them is holding a public event and publicizing this, sending out a press release. So the word will get out, and I want to talk with Deanna about doing a presentation at one of the HILT meetings and bringing the folks in here to see how this works.
Another good idea would be to include that in Access Week. We do have a sign language presentation. I think some of you have been. I know Keith has been at the Ridgewood Public Library. A man named Tyson, he was born hearing, and he is an Apple influencer, so he uses technology in relaying his disability. He's amazing. We read The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and now we know how to say that. But we can incorporate that into Access Week and help amplify it even more.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, they're very fired up about this as well.
Great.
Carol, is this only for indoor spaces?
I believe so. I believe so. But, you know, I don't know. I can find out.
Yeah, I'd like to know. I'm thinking about our downtown.
Oh, that's interesting. It'd be a very big loop. Okay. That's a great idea.
We can certainly research that.
Yeah.
Talk to your contact at county.
Mhm.
Carol, you said the magic words, accessibility and inclusivity, which are something we talk about tonight and many nights. And thank you so much for taking this and running with it. And I know you had some help from people around here, but this is really a big deal. So we're really happy with this, and we're really proud of you and grateful to you for taking the time to get it done.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank Dylan Hansen, too, because Dylan really worked with the hearing loop people on the installation, hooking it up to the system and testing it and getting it to work properly.
Yeah, all good. Anybody else?
Oh, great job.
Carol, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Keith.
Thank you, Mayor. We have nothing under Ridgewood Water tonight. We have nothing under parking. We have 3 items under budget. The first is from the Recreation Department, and this is for the purchase, installation, and playground equipment at Kings Pond Park. As this council is well familiar with, we just came through the approval from the State House Commission back in December to finalize the diversion and disposal with the New Jersey Green Acres program. That issue has been resolved, and as part of that agreement, we are responsible for the purchase and installation of a new children's playground at Kings Pond. Capital funds are available from 2 accounts prior, one from 2022, and then we also appropriated additional money in the 2025 capital budget account for purposes of satisfying the diversion with Green Acres, which includes the installation of this playground. The purchase, installation, and worksite necessary for this Little Tykes Recreation Playground structure will be slated for Kings Pond, will be done by Great Lakes Recreation of Zeeland, Michigan. They have a Sourcewell contract, which is what this will be awarded under. The vendor just recently successfully installed the playground at Havertickle Park, which the Recreation Department is quite pleased with. Total amount not to exceed for the playground, $133,671.02. Any questions?
Everybody good? Let's go.
Okay, the next is a proposal from Topology relative to the Rossi. This is another work effort to satisfy the diversion. Heather, I don't know if you want to speak to this specifically?
So part of the items that we have to do before we are fully cleared of the diversion is to update the Rossi. And so we're in the process of doing that. Topology's worked with us through the diversion process, and they are now working on updating the Rossi. So we need a new contract with them because their previous contract basically covered the diversion. And so this will cover the updating of the Rossi. Once that's updated, that has to be done then every 10 years. So it'll be good for 10 years, and then we'll update it again. Not to say we can't update it internally, but officially, we have to update it at least every 10 years. Once that is completed, and we have the playground, and we have the gazebo, and we pay the money to the state, we will be cleared, and we will be able to get Green Acres money, grants, and, other grants as well. So it's exciting.
Yeah. And just for the public, can you say what does Rossi mean?
Recreation open space inventory. So it basically is an inventory of everything that is considered open space according to Green Acres, and I can tell you they are very thorough. They go on maps, Google Maps, and they go back decades to see what it looked like, to see if it evolved, to see if some of our other things are creeping into open space. So I have to say that they're very thorough. I do want to mention Topology is from Newark, New Jersey, and this for updating the Rossi is not to exceed $10,000.
And I just want to first thank Heather. She's been on top of this since I arrived here and shepherding this through each and every day, even when we trekked to Trenton in December. But we just had 2 recent Zoom meetings on the Rossi where it's amazing, as Heather alluded to, the Green Acres program actually went through and identified through our tax maps online what is considered recreation space in Ridgewood that was not on the Rossi. So essentially, post State House Commission decision in December, we've now been audited through a review of our tax maps to determine what should and shouldn't be on there. And the calls were very comprehensive. Rich Calby was on there, James McGrath was on there, because some of these properties that they've identified actually have underground utilities, which we're a little reluctant to put on the Rossi, because if we ever have to go in and make improvements to those utilities, we don't want to create another diversion. So this has been a pretty complicated process, but we had a very good meeting with DEP last week. Chris Colley from Topology is moving forward with the additions to the Rossi, and also talking to the tax assessor about some areas that should really be considered easements rather than dedicated open space. But we should bring this into fruition within the next 30 to 60 days, and this new appropriation will take us through to wrap this up.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. First, I just want to say, this is, again, thank you, Heather. This is amazing. The Rossi's been an issue, being unmaintained and unupdated, and the diversion has seriously limited our funding and sources of grants, and we are very, very excited to remove this because it's not a good look for Ridgewood. So thank you to everybody. I fully support the update. It's good housekeeping. I did just have a question going back to the playground, and I also want the public to know how exciting it is that we're getting another playground, which is more space. That's wonderful for the kids and the community, and hopefully it'll attract people to the nature preserve up at Kings Pond. Do we have an install date for when, after we order it?
We're awarding the contract March 11th, so, it'll be after that, as soon as they can plan it. Nancy's in contact with them.
And I just want to make sure, Keith, when we do it, that it goes up on the Parks inventory, because that'll be a new amenity. And that's it. I mean, it looks great. I hope people check it out. It's going to be awesome. It's another area, and this is to replace the park that make myself feel really old when missing when I was in 3rd grade. So thanks, Heather.
Everybody good? Let's move on.
Okay, we have 2 items for Office of Emergency Management on tonight. So Jeremy Clement, our coordinator, who I also want to thank for his work through the snowfall. I speak to him more during snowstorms than I do for the balance of the month, but that's true. That's true.
And Jeremy, the big question was, Liam said, well, that's not Mr. Kleinman. I said, no, it's not. Who is that on the voicemail? So I played it and I figured it out. And it was funny because they were trying to figure out, all the boys were trying to figure out if it was you.
So we have 2 items on tonight. One is to change the code to create an actual Office of Emergency Management as a village department. That is not currently the way it is structured, and that is what Jeremy is recommending that we move on, and also the establishment of a fee schedule. So I'll turn it over to Jeremy to talk more in detail about that. Jerry, is that
on?
Is the green light?
Green light at the bottom.
There we go. Okay.
Much better.
Sorry about that. Okay, these are companion ordinances that we're proposing. I'm going to take the second one first, because that'll explain why we need the other one. The first ordinance would amend the departmental fees section of the code to set a fee schedule to allow OEM to recover certain costs for personnel, equipment, et cetera, that are used for, at the request for non-emergencies by essentially private organizations. So this would sort of bring OEM in line with the practices of the police department and the fire department. For example, the Memorial Day run every year. That's a huge burden on us, and as you know, we rely primarily on volunteers. We're deploying equipment, vehicles, hours of planning, developing an an incident action plan, et cetera. The other departments are able to charge back to the organizers of that event. That's just one example. Their costs, because there's an ordinance that allows them to do that. Additional police officers, et cetera. So this fee schedule would allow OEM to recover certain costs in situations where our services are requested at pre-planned major events. That's one example, 4th of July fireworks, Memorial Day run, as well as other situations, and we've had a number of them recently, where private organizations have requested certain resources from us at events on private property, either at a church or at a school for an organization that's rented out, the school for a private event, that kind of thing. So it would allow us to recover those costs.
So Jeremy, have we not been charging up until now?
We have not. Historically, we have not.
All right, I guess two questions. The first is, where then are we coming up with these rates? Because they do look a little low, is my first sort of observation. And then the second, which is contrary to that, is do we think that this will potentially stop some of those events from occurring? So for instance, 4th of July, obviously no one wants the 4th of July not to happen. So do we think that this is going to impede some of these events, but then also are we charging the right rates?
Yeah, so let me say this. The intent, and I think it's in this draft, is that these charging these fees would be in the discretion of the village manager, right?
Okay.
And here's how I think about it. There are events that are co-sponsored and supported by the village, essentially, village-sponsored events. So the way I think about it is if a sister department, the Parks Department, requests resources, a light tower, a generator, personnel, et cetera, communications equipment, et cetera, from OEM, that's probably not a situation where we charge. This would be the default, and I would imagine if there were a situation where the manager thought that it was important for us to support some private organization and not charge them, that would be in his discretion to do so under the circumstances, on a case by case. That's the way I think about it.
And where are we sourcing the rates from?
So I surveyed the rates in ordinances from other towns that have a similar setup where their OEM provides operational support, and as well as fire departments that charge for deployment for hazmat equipment and that kind of thing. And I did my best to be reasonable and take sort of an average of those rates. To be honest, I thought if you were going to have a comment about the rates, it would be the other way, that they were too high. But I felt that these were a reasonable starting point, and as I discussed with Heather, these can always be amended and changed, right?
The only thing I'll say, because Jeremy called me and asked me what I thought of the rates, and my initial reaction was that they were low, but I also think that we have to ease people into this. I mean, what I can tell you is that the amount of events that have grown in this town, even since I've been here for the last 3 years, we can't keep up with it. We simply can't keep up with it budgetarily to support all of these different events, which are happening, multiple events on one weekend in some cases when you get into the spring through the fall. We need to have emergency services at some of these. We need to have PD, FD. we need to have sanitation, we need to have parks at these different events. And to sustain it budgetarily it's not sustainable. So that's one of the reasons that we're looking at this. And listen, we obviously are going to use discretion. However, at the same time, we want to be consistent about outside events versus village-sponsored or village co-sponsored events. And that's something that we will, if this ordinance is introduced and adopted, we will sit down and we will draft out what category those people fall into, similar to how we do it for fields.
Because you're heading to the kind of what I was saying in terms of discrepancy. On the one hand, a lot of those events, even though they're private events, they're for the benefit of the village. It helps our downtown, our citizens love going to them. It's one of the things that makes Ridgewood, Ridgewood. And so I don't want to discourage any of those events because we make it prohibitively expensive for them. So I do want to make sure that when we do this, that obviously we have some ability to work with them. But again, understanding that I also don't want to be accused of any favoritism if we charge one
No,
and there's
we
somebody situated then.
we need to be consistent, and each of these events is going to need to fall into a category. And that's how we're going to have to work it out. But again, that's something that we'll do administratively, because again, I don't want to be accused of being inconsistent, but that's something we'll work out once the ordinance is adopted.
I just want to say I think it's great. A couple things. You're a very reasonable person, but I don't love the discretion idea. That's, on fields, we have things tiered. So we have Evan on the policy, we'll have, our partners, so to speak. And then if there's an event outside of that, there would be fees paid on top of that. Someone using the land for an event, I can't think of one right now, that wasn't sanctioned by, we're not going to charge RSA because they're in a separate class, and we actually create classes of them. So I agree with Keith. It's good to go in a little lower and take the temperature of how this is received. And I definitely feel that we need to do the classifications so we don't get into something arbitrary where it's waived for one and not for another. And I think it's great. And I think you should have been charging last year. So good job.
Yeah, I think that, look, this is a delicate balance. And when you think that, and I've hosted some of these events, that every event where you need a cop, it's $500 for that cop. And when you think about things like 4th of July and downtown for the holidays, where you have a lot of police officers, these are already very, very expensive events. By the same token, as Keith said, it's not sustainable for us to keep supporting everything. We are the victim of our own success. We have so many great events, and they're all for the benefit of our residents.
There's also another factor on all these emergency services, and that's if you want our services exclusively, that's different than being called into service.
Yes.
So, and we deal with that a lot on the EMS response with the fire department. Now that EMS is fully under fire, if you're having a soccer tournament and you wanted it rigged, stationed outside, from the time the soccer tournament starts till the time the soccer tournament ends, we need to bring somebody in on overtime to staff that rig. That would require a fee. Whereas if you don't want that rig there, the fire department is about 1.5 minutes away if they're called into service, and then there would be an ordinary response to an emergency. But if you're looking for exclusivity, with a police officer being assigned to something, with a fire watch being assigned to something, with a rig, or now with emergency services, if you want that assignment for you exclusively, that these people aren't going to get pulled off that job, then there needs to be a fee associated.
Which is why I like this fee schedule, which I think we all looked at it and said, gee, that's not that much money, but this is after they're paying for the police and all the other things they need to do. So I think that this is really striking as good a balance as we can, given the circumstances. So I did a nice job, Jeremy. Sorry.
I also wanted to say that event Backwoods would be the perfect event. It also makes the event planner have a checklist, like lights and things, so it's much more thoughtful.
Yep.
It keeps the event safer. Some of these events can get rather large, but that's all I went. Backwoods, I was like drawing a blank on an event that would have been in its class by itself, and that's a perfect one.
And what it also does is it prevents last-minute asks, which we had recently with a major event in town, where Jeremy got a call 48 hours before asking for service. multi-night event. It was going to be hard to get someone to exclusively be there for that. This will be a motivator to have a meeting, which we do quite often up in my office with all these events. All the necessary departments are sitting around the table, and we're going through the checklist that Siobhan talks about to make sure that we have all the resources we need and all the staff we need to support their event. Because listen, a lot of these things that happen in Van Ness Square, you know, if we don't have the proper staff there, the next day, you know, we're getting sent photographs of overflowing garbage cans or litter in the park or anything like that. And that's the type of thing that we're trying to prevent.
So Keith, I guess two asks then. Number one, we should make sure that a lot of the regularly occurring events know that we're now going to start instituting this. And the second is, I'm not sure if you get any thoughts perhaps a grace period, because I can tell you from firsthand experience with, say, 4th of July, like that budgeting is already well underway. And to then ask them to pay that fee now, you know, if they were not previously aware of it, is going to be a bit of a hardship.
Keep in mind, Evan, we budget for the majority of the emergency services for 4th of July.
Already, but I mean, so including the extra ones we're now proposing?
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy and I'll talk about that. Again, I wanted to make sure that there was the support for this before we outlined who would fall into what category.
Yeah,
but we fund the police and fire support for the 4th of
But
July.
even other events, you know, make sure that the guild's aware so that they start factoring this in. If we've got events that are maybe coming up in the near future that they haven't budgeted this in, see if we can give some grace. Again, I just want to strike that balance of ensuring that we're being fiscally responsible. We're not discouraging any of those events from occurring. We need to be fair to those folks, but also understand that we're getting a huge benefit from the events they put on here in Ridgewood.
Jeremy, are these private entities asking for exclusive coverage from OEM because their insurance coverage requires it? Or is it just a wish?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you would.
Yeah, no, I don't know the answer to that question. But I'll give you an example. And I think, Deputy Mayor, you may be aware of this one. One of the houses of worship in town, requested lighting for their parking lot for a senior event that was co-sponsored by the Parks and Recreation Department. And typically, we accommodate that request. And my view is that it's co-sponsored by Parks and Rec. It's a village event. Of course, we're going to provide that assistance to the Parks Department. That house of worship then, and it requires, I need to get, one of my members to, hitch a light tower, tow it there, go back the next day to turn it on at the appropriate time, set it, go back, turn it off, and then, and then haul the thing away. I got a call asking if we could leave it there because a week or two later, there was some other event that Parks had nothing to do with that they thought it would be nice that they had some additional lighting. And in a weak moment, I said, fine. Then the next day after that second event, they called and asked if we can leave it there for another week or two for a third event that they were having there. Again, on private property, having nothing to do with the village. And I finally said, no mas, like done last time. If you have a dark parking lot, you might want to think about putting some lighting in your parking lot. Like we're not Taylor Rental that, some organization or private business can just, hey, can we borrow? Another one several weeks ago, the function that Keith was alluding to, in addition to the lighting, they said, hey, can we just borrow 50 traffic cones? Not for a village street, but for something in the parking lot of this facility. So we get those kinds of requests, and it's like, well, at what point does the village stop sort of providing resources to these private events when they should go to Taylor Rental, right? And I think about things like a generator or a light tower. That's burning diesel fuel, right? The taxpayers are paying for the fuel for these things, and really, is there a benefit to the village? So I was trying to find
And that's a great point. A lot of these requests aren't even something to do with the village. It's not something at Van Ness. It's not something at BF. It's not the Memorial Day run. It's private property, community-based organization, but not a village-sponsored endeavor. We need the ability to offset our costs on these resources.
And listen, and you and I have had this discussion. We would love to be able to supply everybody with, as you say, to be the Taylor rental for all the churches, all the schools, all the private events that are community-based. Keith's still got to balance the budget, and so, you know, I think this is the right answer to what, again, has become an issue because we have so many great events. So thank you for doing that, Jeremy.
So Jeremy, do you want to jump down to amending Chapter 3, which is to amend the section on Emergency Management Council and establish the Office of Emergency Management as a village department? And then while you're here, you might as well talk about the hazard mitigation plan for 26 as well. That's on the agenda.
I'm sorry, about
The Bergen County Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2026.
Oh, sure.
That's on the agenda
Yeah.
tonight.
Oh, is
so
it?
it's a Jeremy heavy night here.
Sure. Okay, so in drafting this fee schedule and sticking it under the departmental fees section of the code, I realized that there is no department. This is all just housekeeping, right? So the only reference in the village code to emergency management is in the section establishing boards, commissions, and councils. And it's primarily in reference to the Emergency Management Council, which we're required to have by law. And sort of buried in there is, and the mayor shall appoint an emergency management coordinator, but there's no other language in there. So this was a cleanup where the amendment would leave the Emergency Management Council in the section of code on boards, commissions, and councils, right? And then strip out all of the other OEM sort of operational and authority type things, and create a new section under departments that would formally, and this is just codifying what we already have, right? Establishing the Office of Emergency Management as a department of village government, laying out the authorities and duties that are set forth in the statute, in the state law, and really just sort of cleaning up the code.
So no substantive changes, basically.
Well, it's really just memorializing what's in practice on paper.
Right, no substantive
Well,
changes.
exactly, that's what I get, no substantive.
I like it. This means you officially have a title now, right? Now we have official.
I really don't need the title. I don't need anything.
Jeremy, we thank you for all the work that you've done for the village for so many years, for your stipend. You're a very good man, and we're fortunate to have you on.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mayor.
He's got one more.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have one more. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was on. So every 4 or 5 years.
5.
5? The village is required to implement a hazard mitigation plan, which is a written document dealing with really how the village will deal with certain natural hazards, flooding and things of this nature. It's not an emergency response plan, but more of a mitigation plan, how we deal with, zoning, what are the critical infrastructures we have in town, how are we going to protect them, things like this. Several years ago, Bergen County realized it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for 70 municipalities to put together 70 plans. So the Board of Commissioners authorized the adoption of a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So basically one plan for the entire county. And the county, every 5 years, pays the full cost of a consultant to meet with each municipality, go through the requirements, and they draft our section, if you will, of a countywide plan. That process occurred last year for the 5-year revisions. We had several rounds of meetings with the consultants and representatives from the county, and finished off the Richwood section. The county has adopted this plan by ordinance, and I think by April 1st or something, they're requiring each municipality to adopt it by resolution. And so by us adopting this countywide plan, which has a Ridgewood chapter in it, we're covered, and we don't have to go out and put together our own plan.
Any questions on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you see areas of that plan that could be improved for Ridgewood? When you went through it, did you see things that you thought, I wish it had such and such?
So, no. So we updated things like our inventory of Ridgewood facilities. It identifies, every, water department pump station, and these kinds of things, critical facilities. But in terms of improvements, I think we are limited by our topography and by financial resources, right? We've had these conversations in the past. If there were grants, should we be, buying up, properties in flood zones and, turning them into green space and things like that? Yeah, I mean, in theory, yes, those are the kinds of improvements, but are they pie in the sky? Yes. From a realistic standpoint, I think it's as good as it's going to get.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, I have a question. Can we see our chapter, and is the chapter public facing, or because is it?
It is. It's
Okay.
posted on the county website, and I believe in my memo to the manager with
It is, yeah, I just don't
resolution,
have-
there's a link there.
Yeah, my link wasn't live to our chapter.
Oh.
Can you send it?
I'll send you the link. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could send it to us, because
Sure.
I think that would be beneficial for Green Ridgewood and for residential
Yeah,
flood.
sure.
I sent your last manual to them, and they loved it, the one that we were discussing whether or not to print in the budget. So the more information we can have, I know Green Ridgewood would want it, I want it for residential flood, and then maybe we could put our chapter in an e-notice as well?
Let me review it first.
Okay.
I want to go through it again and just see if it might be public facing, but sending it out to the public, depending on,
Might be a bad idea.
I need to look at it one more
Yeah,
time.
I couldn't launch it, just couldn't, for some reason. So if you could just send the chapter.
I got an error
Yeah.
also.
Okay.
But you c- the-
I'll send you the link.
The website's there.
Yeah.
If you just look for it by words, you can find it.
If you could just chop our chapter out, that'd be great.
I'll see what I can do.
Cheat sheet of.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Mayor,
you.
the
Safe
last,
home.
the last item, just going back to policy, is a memorandum from Chief Judge. The Ridgewood Fire Department is seeking approval to enroll in the Joint Insurance Fund Certified Fire Department Program. This is an initiative that standardizes policies, risk management tools necessary to enhance firefighter safety. It's sort of a fire version of the police accreditation program. Brings all of the policies and procedures, regulations up to date. Upon the completion of the program, the municipality would be awarded an initial $5,000 for additional fire training and equipment through a grant program, as well as $2,500 additional every 3 years. With the approval of the council, the program will take about 12 months to be allotted, and it does require a digital system for policy distribution. We already satisfy that requirement through our Power DMS service. So Chief is looking to get the fire department certified, similar to what we're doing with accreditation at the police department.
What is the JIF?
The Joint Insurance Fund?
Right, but it's not like a regular insurance company. Is it a consortium of all the self-insured towns?
No, it's a consortium of municipalities that together are insured through the Joint Insurance Fund. And there are multiple joint insurance funds in Bergen County. Our neighbors around us, probably up to Oakland out that way, 13 municipalities that we often work with in this region are all members of the Bergen Joint Insurance Fund. There's also a South Bergen Joint Insurance Fund that deals with most of the municipalities south of Route 4. And together, we couple our insurance, and that is how we procure casualty, liability, everything but health insurance.
So it's not self-insurance?
No.
And so does the JIF go out to an insurance company and buy the policies that apply?
We work, it depends on which policy. We work through the mail on things like workman's comp, but we solicit the insurance together so that we get a group rate rather than an individual rate.
Gotcha.
Everybody good?
Yep.
That
Let's-
concludes my portion of the agenda, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go back to public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Boyd A. Loving, Ridgewood resident. Last week I spoke about, or I made a suggestion regarding the sensory-friendly portion of the July 4th parade. And quite frankly, the message I got from the dais was that that plan was, or my suggestion would be poo-pooed because that had been looked at and was not possible at all for a variety of reasons. I'm pleased tonight that comments from Councilman Weitz indicated that that is still under discussion and that there may be a sensory-friendly portion of the parade. To me, it seems like a simple thing to do. Just do it at the beginning of the parade, one block, before anybody turns on their lights, sirens, or the band starts playing. One block at the beginning of the parade where there's no noise, no visual distractions. So I'm pleased, at least I think I'm pleased, that Mr. Weitz indicated that that is still under discussion and it still may happen. With respect to the snow cleanup, the street department is doing an excellent job. One of the things that makes the street department's job more difficult, though, is when people with snow plows push snow out into the street. When Mr. Rudishauser was employed here, whenever he was asked about that, he indicated that no summonses could be issued unless somebody actually witnessed that happening. Quite frankly, I can't believe that. It is clear where the snow comes from when you see it piled on the street. You look at the driveway that is directly across from where the pile is, and you know that the pile was pushed out from that driveway. I fail to understand why code enforcement can't issue warnings or summonses to the property owners where that snow is removed from. Certainly in today's day and age, where we've got GPS tracking that you can pinpoint a location, determine where it came from, I just don't understand why we are still relying upon, unless we see it happen, we can't issue a summons. So I would ask the village attorney and the manager to see if anything can be done so that we can clearly, when it's clear where this pile of snow came from, why can't we do anything about it? It makes the street department's job so difficult. Dayton Street between Maple and Hope is always a mess because there are two commercial properties that push their snow out onto that street. Why can't we go to those property owners and say, cut it out? We're going to issue a summons. It just boggles my mind that we can't do anything about it unless we see it happen. Those are my comments for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyd. Anybody else?
Denise Lima, Ridgewood resident. Just a few follow-up items. Keith, the picnic tables at Habernacle are going to be occupied by children and people playing sports and families, and Braden requires a badge to get into those picnic tables. We're specifically looking for picnic tables at Luning and Van Ness. So there's like 15 picnic tables at Braden. I don't know why we just can't take one picnic table, carry it over, and dump it in Luning. So follow-up item for that.
Denise, you said Lewing Park?
Luning,
Luning.
Gotcha.
one table. Evan, you talked about 4th of July. This is the second request. 2 years in a row, there was no handicap parking. And I don't mean handicap parking at the other end of Braden. It needs to be close by so people can get in, or behind the municipal building and they can walk in the back. So nothing was open last year. It was open the year before for 2 minutes. 4 cars got in. So we just need to do a better job of that. Thank you. Frank, you didn't mention anything about the safety and accident at East Glennon and Northern Parkway, where the car went through the porch. It's a super bad, intersection. We have to do something. I know it's county related, not county related. We're going to have to influence the county, but the accidents are getting worse there. Paul, your updates. I just have to say we've gotten a lot of good money on Ridgewood Water and all the grants, and we're updating all the facilities. But the big elephant in every communication that doesn't get announced is that our PFAS exceeds the New Jersey requirements for the last 10 years. I cannot be happy and jumping up and down that there's new facilities and getting money, when our water is still tainted and still exceeds the requirements. So somewhere we need to be cognizant of that and make sure people understand both sides. NJDEP approval, I think that's contingent on us doing a historical architectural landscape projected from ground disturbing activities prior to the park construction. So we still need to present something before we start working on the park and the activities, is my understanding on the February 2nd notice from the towns. And the downtown parking meeting before, we said it's specific to business owners, tenants who live in the area, and commuters and employees, but it was never mentioned about regular residents. So we park there too. We need to park for restaurants. We have takeout. You know, we're trying to run in 15 minutes, you know, services, shoes. So, you know, if you're looking for
Time is
people
up.
to participate in those events, I'd be happy to work with everybody on parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I'm going to close public comment. Would anybody like to respond?
I would. Denise, forgive me for not bringing up Glen and Northern Parkway. So we did discuss that actually, and Ridgewood PD looked at it over a 5-year history. And remember the one house that had the site obstruction because of the bushes? So I asked them to look at it 12 months before and 12 months after, and we did see a reduction in the accidents by right-of-way, like that they didn't stop essentially, and that went down. I think it was 50% in that respect. So we also looked at what I found most interesting is that in 5 years, there was only one accident that it was someone on Glenn's fault. Every other one is from going north or south. Yeah, and so, but engineering went out there prior to our meeting. PD did the study, so we are going to put a flashing stop signs on Northern Parkway in both directions. And so engineering's already talking to Signal about pricing those out.
Sure, and I had a couple clarification items. So I want to take an attempt to explain what Evan and I are working on with a little bit of a clarification. So Denise, last year we had more handicap parking than any prior year. Yeah, we counted. We went through with the police and we had more handicap parking, and I want to thank Evan's committee for being mindful of that. I want to remind the general public that, you know, in terms of physical disabilities where access is hard, 1 in 4 Americans will be considered disabled at some point in their life. With our increasing population, 25% of Ridgewood is over 55, and if you had a knee replacement, you would have a badge. But last year, Evan's organization worked with us, and you had more handicap parking than the prior years. And additionally, with clarification for access. Access and 4th of July have met. Maybe Evan got the word slightly wrong because of the dinners, but access is very sensitive to the phrase, and I'm going to keep repeating it, that no one brush paints the whole access. So what that means is that we have different disabilities in our access committee, and that committee advocates for disabilities within all of our organizations. They do not wish to have a neurodivergent section of the parade. They want a parade accommodation for access, which would cover, you know, neurodivergent would be covered in it, but so would handicapped people. So would people who had different issues within the disability community. So we've been working on a myriad of things. Access is also, it's not going to be one approach, because a huge part of inclusion isn't that it's separate, you know, over there. So we may be doing something on Main Street if it all works out, and Paul and Evan and I are working on that, and we may be incorporating disabilities in the parade. But the feature in the parade will just be part of the parade because they don't wish to be separate. I just want to remind people that MJ Aguilar, our intern, represented the disability community as a whole, and literally every one of the icons on the Access logo is represented. So Evan, I'm just going to correct you, I know you meant it with love, it won't be a neurodivergent focus because that's just one element of access. It will be an access approach to integrating into the events like we do with early hours, with separate touch-a trucks and all of that. They're extremely sensitive because we have a high rate of neurodivergence within the village for that being represented by them. We also have a significant part of that community that has disabilities where they need wheelchairs or vision issues. And so we're going to be doing many things. We'll be reporting back, but it won't just be a neurodivergent aspect. Cool?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I know we're working on a lot of different ideas. I want to wait until they're fully baked before we announce them, but I think everything you said, Siobhan, is spot on. I also want to thank you for highlighting the handicap parking issue. That was something I was very proud of that the committee, the committees, plural, tackled with police last year to ensure more handicap parking across the entire, and I know you're shaking your head, Denise, but we counted them. So I have to respectfully disagree with you. I'm sorry, Denise, I was speaking. Right. Denise, I have the mic.
Denise?
You had your 3 minutes.
Denise, no one interrupts you when you speak. Please
All right.
don't interrupt him when he speaks.
As Siobhan said, we counted them. There was more parking. We will redouble efforts again this year because I too share the concern to ensure that everyone has the ability to share in the parade. But I do think it's unfair to say that you were, or to imply that the request was not actioned last year, because it certainly was. Similarly to your comments or to Paul around PFAS, I don't think there's any hiding the ball in terms of the PFAS problem. Ridgewood has a PFAS problem along with thousands of water municipalities across the nation. We've been well ahead of most of them. The fact is, because of the proactive work by Rich Calby and some really fantastic people in the village, we will cure our problem decades before many of the other water municipalities or water companies throughout the country do. So to suggest somehow that we're not advertising that or overlooking it, respectfully, I think is disingenuous. We've been nothing but transparent on this topic, and I remain incredibly proud of the hard work of Rich Calby and Ridgewood Water to correct the problem that is a nationwide issue.
I also,
I would like to speak.
Can I finish my other comments? And then
How about I
okay,
get this
okay,
off?
go ahead.
If you don't mind. Every quarter, the Ridgewood Water Utility sends out a notice to every single ratepayer as to what the facts are about PFAS. You get it in your mail every single quarter, and every single letter is reviewed by the DEP that we are meeting the requirements of public notice on the situation with PFAS. As Evan says, there's no cover-up here. But the efforts of Ridgewood Water do need to be celebrated. It's pretty damn remarkable. And the other thing I wanted to say is you might think that putting out picnic tables is a no-brainer and not very expensive. But we have a homeless problem. And we don't want them using picnic tables as beds or shelter. And so that is a consideration. And I'm not going to speak for the Parks Department as to what they're thinking. It's just something I've observed.
I want to add to it. So with respect to the picnic tables, they are at Habernickel. I'm not sure I totally understood your statement, but that pavilion is open to the public, and it can be used. You don't need a badge to go in there. Those picnic tables are there, and additionally, with Looning Park, I'd be concerned about that because many neighbors do not want those amenities because they come with food, and with food comes sanitation. So we have to be really mindful about where we put places where garbage can be generated. So just to reiterate, we do have picnic tables that are available to the public, and it's lovely park at Habernickel. You do not need to reserve them. They're open to the public. That's our newest amenity. We incorporated feedback and we put them up there. Graydon, you do need a badge to get to. But many residents, Looning is embedded in a residential neighborhood, do not like additional amenities there because they will generate trash. And lastly, with respect to water, next year we will be PFAS free. It's 2026 now. There's been delays, so it's coming, which is super exciting. And I think in fairness to the PFAS issue within New Jersey, anything that we do to improve it that makes that date closer should be celebrated. And I think that's really important that Ridgewood Water is braggable. We've hosted forums, we've had access, and personally, because they watch these meetings, that's to be bragged about. So I think Paul does a really good job of it, but it's not something far off without an unassigned date. And I know there's been different dates. 2027 will be our day, and that will be a big celebration. Paul may make an even longer speech. He'll go on and on. But I did just want to thank our staff, because it's amazing to think of how far ahead we are in the curve.
I was just sitting here minding my own business, just so you know.
But I do think every facility that we open and every step we take should be celebrated. And, you know, the talented staff at Ridgewood Water really needs to be applauded each and every time. And I think that's it.
Anybody else want to take a swing at me? I mean, anybody else have anything to say?
Mayor, just if I may, with your permission.
Oh, yes, by all means, Matt.
Just with regard to Ridgewood Water, there are a number of treatment facilities that are already up and running. I don't have the exact numbers, but well over half of the customers of Ridgewood Water have PFAS-free water at this point in time. And as Siobhan said, 2027 is the completion date. We're under a administrative consent order with DEP. We're meeting all those deadlines that the DEP has approved, and we will actually be probably a little bit ahead of schedule on that. So that's the one thing. And just with regard to the snow, I think when Chris Rudishauser was referring to issuing summonses, the proofs needed to issue a summons would need at least some type of visible effort being made by somebody to put snow out into the street. Circumstantial evidence can get you so far, which is that the fact that there wasn't snow there now, this looks like it comes from the mouth of a driveway or something like that. But, you know, the proofs that he needs to be able to do that on a regular basis would do best with having photographs, pictures, someone testifying that they saw this being done on this particular site, and the snow being removed and put into the street. Ridgewood staff, personnel have to then remove that once it's in the street at a later time. So it does cause problems. Certainly, issuing summons is different than issuing a warning. And I know that's what you're talking about, and that's something that you know, personnel could probably look at with directions.
Mayor, just to follow up on that, the most frustrating part of a snowstorm for me is people throwing the snow back in the street. And if it frustrates me, who generally doesn't sit behind the wheel of a truck with a plow on it, I can't imagine how frustrating it is to somebody who's worked 20, 24 hours straight trying to remove the snow from the street to see the people that they're working in service to throwing it back. I have personally, during both snowstorms, stopped people and put my window down and identified who I was and asked them to refrain from doing it. There's some anger built into those conversations. But I will tell you this, over the last 2 snowstorms, I've requested that Chief Lyons direct his staff at the police department to go out and address this. And the reason that we're having the police address it now is because it's a very short window to be able to enforce this once the snow stops while people are clearing their sidewalks and their driveways. So to have the police department, who obviously has much more manpower than our code enforcement person, which is one individual, the police department has been aggressively going out and addressing this with the residents. And I think from an effectiveness standpoint, that is our best option. We have enough police that can go out there. Now, interestingly enough, on Monday afternoon, I received a text message from Chief Lyons saying it's happening on every street, and they were doing the best they could to enforce it. I understand the frustration of snow removal, trying to go out there. You have to go out multiple times, trying to pile it up on your front lawn. Maybe there's a little vengeance built into throwing it back in the street, I don't know. But we really are working hard to try to stop people from doing that, getting them to refrain from doing that, because all it does is create a problem where our folks have to go back out and readdress a situation that's already been dealt with. Just to go a little deeper on the Habernickel Pavilion, the Habernickel Pavilion will be treated as any other facility in the village which someone would want to request to use for a birthday party, a Cub Scout meeting, whatever it happens to be. But when it is not scheduled, it is open to the public in accordance with Green Acres rules and regulation. The only time a permit would be issued is if it was an organized event where the facility was properly requested to be used and approved through master library. So I just want to be clear on that. With regard to picnic tables at those two parks, I can talk to Nancy about mooning. That's not a problem. I will tell you, I would have a reluctance about putting picnic tables at Van Ness Square. You know, while we often refer to that park as Van Ness Square, it's actually a memorial park at Van Ness Square. It is not customary to have picnic tables in a memorial park, and I realize that that park is very versatile. It's used for a lot of different things. But as somebody who comes from a Gold Star family, I would be a little reluctant of making that into a formal picnic area with the war monuments that exist there. So that is something that I will talk to Nan and her team about, but I think there might be reluctance only because of the memorial nature of the park. With regard to the parking meeting, every resident of Ridgewood was invited to that parking meeting. It was put out in multiple e-notices, Carol, I'd say 2 or 3 probably. It was put out on social media. When we talk about the residents, I think we talk about their needs being very consistent with the business owner needs, which is the ability to park, access whatever they need to do downtown. So in no way were the residents excluded. As a matter of fact, those are the people who are parking there. They're probably the most important part of the equation. But everybody has different needs that are competing with that, and that's something that Walker is going to work through. And not to be redundant or repetitive, but you know, kudos to the administration that sat here before us, because they were the ones that made a really hard decision. And I have to tell you, if I was the manager, when Heather was the manager, and had to make a decision to spend $150 million to mitigate PFAS, that would have been a hard number for me to swallow as a village manager. But the prior administration appropriated that money and kicked off this endeavor, you know, working with Rich Calby to fund what needed to be done to bring us a year from now to have PFAS-free water. And while I understand that those correspondence that go out that are approved by the DEP, first of all, they're incredibly complicated. Most people don't know what they actually say because they're written in DEP speak, as we call it. But, you know, our goal every single day here is to get us to a year from now when we can have that celebration that Siobhan talked about, where we will be PFAS free. And as Evan said, you know, Veolia, Passaic Valley Water Commission, they're decades away from being where we're going to be in 12 months. The only water companies, water utilities that are ahead of the curve are the much smaller utilities like a Hohokus or a Hawthorne, where they had their scope of work, their project scope was much smaller than what we have to do to service these 4 towns. But, you know, I don't think anything should be taken away from the professional staff at Ridgewood Water, the job they've done to get this to where we need to be. And by the way, we're doing this right. I drive home most days down Goffel Road in Hawthorne. If you look to the right there by the fire station, and I'm not taking away from the folks in Hawthorne, but they did it the way they did it. Those tanks are exposed to the elements. Our tanks are going to be housed. Drive down Goffel Road, closer to the turkey farm across the street, that facility is housed. Go down to the water treatment control facility. That PFAS center is housed. And that is going to get us a lot more longevity out of this technology and this infrastructure that we're building out, so that we're not having to readdress it, not us, we won't be here, but that the future councils and future managers and future leadership at Ridgewood Water won't have to address this sooner. Because we're doing it right, they'll address it much later than some of these other utilities.
One more thing. In the wintertime, we're probably PFAS-free right now.
Yes, and that is, right now, we're significantly less usage during the winter months. Once we turn the corner and we end up in lawn watering season, that's when you'll see the numbers rise, because it has to do with the volume of water that we're using. But we are currently purchasing water from Hawthorne, which is, again, PFAS-free because their project is complete and built out. That's being integrated into our system. As Matt said, nearly half of our treatment centers are already up and running, so they're treating the water for PFAS. And a year from now, you won't be seeing any more of those quarterly notices.
Anybody else? Seeing no one, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Let's go.